I've known my childhood best friend for over 10 years. Everyone at school knew I was so in love with him. I even dreamed of marrying him. So when he publicly confessed to a new girl, everyone was betting I'd show up and make a scene. But I didn't go, I just disappeared. That's when he finally started to panic. In the middle of the night, he was going door to door in the dorm looking for me. What he didn't know was the lights in the room were off. And I was hiding under his roommate's covers, barely daring to breathe the cold, untouchable guy everyone at school admired. Had one arm locked tightly around my waist. "Where is she?" my childhood friend asked. Clearly irritated, the man just tightened his grip on me under the blanket and lied without missing a beat. "She's not here, haven't seen her." Jake was going to confess to that pretty transfer student. He told everyone to keep it from me. He didn't know some blabbermouth couldn't wait to spill. Everyone knew I'd had a thing for Jake forever. Even dreamed about marrying him one day. This time Jake seemed totally head over heels. People were betting I throw a fit, cry, make a huge deal. Everyone loves that kind of drama. They were all waiting for me to snap and rush in to ruin it. But nope, even after Jake's successful confession, I was a no-show. The crowd, 3 layers deep, started getting bored. Jake himself didn't even look that happy. He had his arm around his new girlfriend and pulled out his phone. No calls, no texts. Jake frowned a little, then he turned to the crowd. "Drinks are on me tonight, everyone's invited." The classmates who'd been watching all cheered. I'd been standing behind some trees the whole time. And finally stepped out. Someone with sharp eyes spotted me and yelled, Mia's here." Knew it, no way Mia would stay away. Jake's head snapped up the second he saw me. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost like a smile. I ignored all the people hungry for drama. I walked straight up to Jake. Jake tightened his arm around his new girlfriend. He looked at me, his voice flat. "You can't force this stuff. We've known each other over 10 years. I don't want to say anything harsh. Ruin what we had from now on. You're still like a sister to me. If you need anything, you can still come to me." Then he lowered his voice. "With everyone watching, don't cause a scene here. Just go home, Jake." I cut him off, taking a slow step forward. He frowned again. "Mia, be reasonable." I smiled and held out the bracelet I just slipped off my wrist. "I came to give this back." Seeing the bracelet, Jake's face darkened. "Mia, what game are you playing now? Take it, I won't bother you after this." Jake stared at me, his voice dropping. "I don't care about the money. If you don't want to, toss it." As soon as the words were out, I turned and threw the bracelet into a nearby trash can. "You can throw out everything else I ever gave you too." With that, I walked away without looking back. By the time I reached the river, it was pouring under my umbrella. I thought about the recurring dream Jake confessed to Chloe. I cried, made a scene, then jumped into the river to force him to break up. I nearly died, but Jake stayed at the hospital only 5 minutes. Fosters who'd taken me in thought I was an embarrassment and useless. Because of Jake's indifference, they made me drop out and sent me back to my terrible birth parents. My life spiraled, and I died miserable in a foreign country. The only one who gathered my remains was Liam, the man I'd always feared, who kept my ashes and stayed alone forever. Jake, his new wife by his side, never showed lately. The dreams had been coming true. Without them, I'd be blowing up Jake's phone, threatening to jump, but the dream was a second chance. I could change my fate on the 3rd call. He answered. I clutched the phone. "Liam." The rain drowned out everything but his deep, lazy voice. "Mia, it's pouring. I'm by the river. Can't get back. Can you come get me?" Silence hung. I gripped the umbrella, palms sweaty in the dream. I'd seen Liam cry over my remains, felt the burn of his tears, carried my ashes, always alone. My eyes stung. I choked back a sob. "Why are you crying?" Liam's voice was indifferent, almost annoyed. I didn't say I wouldn't come. "So, when 20 minutes? Okay, I'll wait." Liam, he hung up without another word. 15 minutes later, I gave my umbrella to a mom and kid hiding from the rain. So when Liam showed up, I was already soaked. Getting out of the car, his lips were a thin line, his face cold as ice. I pushed my wet bangs back and looked up at him with a bright smile. "Liam, you're right on time. Mia, you're gonna catch your death, being this dumb." He coldly grabbed my arm and shoved me into the passenger seat. And he tossed a soft blanket at me. "Dry off, don't get my car wet." He glanced at me in the rear view mirror, then smoothly turned the car around. Oh, I wrapped myself in the blanket. Then I couldn't help sneaking glances at him while he drove. When his face was blank, he looked cold, unapproachable. Lots of girls at school liked him, but no one dared to make a move. Was Jake's roommate I used to go to Jake's dorm a lot. And every time Liam seemed to really not like me. Even now, though, he came to get me. He was still ice when he shoved me into the car. Just now he used extra force. My wrist still hurt, a red mark circling it. Hard to tell he secretly liked me all along. I slowly lowered my gaze. Everything in the dream came true. But now, because I changed, things a lot changed too. Would Liam still like me if he didn't like me at all? Wasn't I just causing him trouble? Back to the dorm, Liam glanced at me. Suddenly my heart jumped. "Yeah, your dorm." Liam's grip on the wheel tightened. He let out a short laugh. "Won't be back tonight." I know. I twisted the edge of the blanket. "I'm not looking for him." The car brakes hard. Pulling over, Liam turned to look at me, the ice in his eyes making me shiver. "Mia, don't use me in whatever game you're playing with Jake." "I'm not." He stared at me for a second, then pulled out his phone. I'll call you a cab, go back yourself, Liam. I bit my lip hard and snatched his phone, Mia. He looked at me, no anger, no disgust in his eyes, just deep. A whole storm was in there. I suddenly felt sad, Liam. I don't want to go back to the dorm. They're all laughing at me. I'm scared to go home too. Can I just stay at your dorm tonight? I hid his phone behind my back. My voice getting smaller, of course. If you really hate me that much, forget it, right on cue. Tears roll down my cheeks. Quiet, soundless. Liam didn't say another word to me, but he started the car again. It headed toward campus, finally stopping at his dorm building. I followed Liam inside. He went to the closet, pulled out a clean hoodie and handed it to me. Bathrooms there, he's tall, so the hoodie was huge on me. It went almost to my knees, like a dress after my shower. I just had the hoodie on, bare legs. Liam glanced at me, then looked away fast. I walked past Jake's bed and sat on Liam's. My wet hair dripped quickly, soaking the sheets, the shampoo. The soap on me, it was all Liam's smell. In the small room, the same scent was everywhere. A weird, quiet intimacy growing. Liam pulled out a pack of cigarettes, cleared his throat, gonna smoke. He went to the balcony. I looked around Liam's bed. Light gray sheets, a computer, and books on the desk. Also tidy. I was about to check out his desk stuff when my phone rang. Jake flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. He called again and again, like he wouldn't stop. I just put it on silent and tossed it back in my bag. Liam, I called toward the balcony. He turned fast, put out his cigarette, and came over what? Sitting on the bed. I had to look up at him. Liam's eyes met mine for 2 seconds, then darted away, but I saw the backs of his ears were red. I got your bed all wet. How are you gonna sleep tonight? He glanced at me, then at the wet spot on the sheets. His Adam's apple bobbed hard before he turned to the closet. Dry your hair, I'll change the sheets. Then he went to get fresh sheets, holding the towel, thinking of his red ears. I couldn't help smiling when I came out. Hair dried, Liam had already changed the sheets. Go to sleep, what about you? He pulled out a chair, not even looking. I'll game. Oh. I sat on his bed, kinda dejected. Liam put on his headset, was about to put it on when his phone rang. He looked at the screen, then at me before answering. Jake. What's up? My heart squeezed. I held my breath. Yeah. I'm in the dorm. Someone saw me at our building. Liam looked at me again, I in a panic. I didn't let him finish. I got up, walked over, and climbed into his lap. My arms around his neck when Liam moved to push me away. I pressed my mouth to his ear. Liam, tell him I'm not here. Under my arms, Liam's skin got hot fast. I saw a vein in his neck pulse. His Adam's apple moved, his heart beating wild. I looked up at him, he looked down at me. In his eyes, something dark and wanting spread. No. Been here the whole time. She didn't come. Yeah, ask someone else. Liam hung up as soon as the words were out. He tossed the phone aside, his long fingers gripping my waist through the hoodie, holding me tight, pressing me into him. I felt it. The heat. The want. My ears buzzed. My first thought was to run. But Liam held me tighter, Mia. His voice was rough, his hot breath was on my ear. My neck, I shiver. Tried to move, but his kiss landed right on my lips. Don't tempt me, I don't want to touch you here. Liam, I squirmed, trying to adjust how I was sitting. The heat between us felt dangerous. When I could breathe, I finally got the words out. If you don't want to touch me, why are you kissing me? Liam lowered his head, his forehead against mine. In the mess of our breathing, he closed his eyes like he was trying to calm down also. Do you even know how to kiss? My lips are swollen, Mia. Liam didn't open his eyes, but his hands on my waist loosened a little. His fingers were long, strong, holding me through the hoodie. It hurt and felt good, Liam. I frowned, tried to push his hands away, but Liam caught my fingers. Mia, don't move. I'll be gentler. As he finished, his hands slid to my lower back. He pulled me closer, tight against him. This kiss was long and soft. By the end, he lost control, kissing me deep. Liam. I pushed lightly at his chest, bit his lip between breaths. Mia. Liam's voice was wrecked, his whole body went tight. The heat from his hands was almost burning me. Liam buried his face in my neck with a low groan. The tension broke, then faded, but soon it was building again. Still, Liam gently pushed me away, stood me up. I just thought his expression was strange, and there was a new smell in the air. I couldn't help asking Liam what just happened. His ears were blood red. The guy who was always so cold now had eyes full of raw want. I need a shower. He stood his eyes down as he fixed the hem of my messy hoodie. Before I could say anything, Liam was in the bathroom when the water started. I lay on Liam's bed and curled up. Then I pressed the back of my hand to my burning face. Think I kinda guessed what happened. But Liam's tall, works out. All lean muscles, sharp jaw, strong hands. However you look at him, he doesn't seem like the type who'd finish that fast. Maybe he never had a girlfriend before. Never been that close to a girl. Thinking that, my heart felt fizzy. I lay on Liam's pillow and felt something under it. A pearl earring. It looked familiar. It was one of a pair I wore all the time. Once at Jake's dorm, I lost one and never found it. So Liam had it. I remembered in those dreams. Liam always kept this earring. After a minute, I put it back under his pillow. The hair dryer stopped when Liam came out. He wore navy blue pajamas. Steam made his skin look pale, with his hair neat. That sharp coldness was softer. Somehow Liam looked cute. I was about to call to him when I heard voices outside the door. My face fell. I froze. One of the voices was definitely Jake's. Liam's face darkened, but he was faster than me. By the time Jake pushed the door open, Liam had stuffed my clothes in the closet. My shoes were under the bed, way back, and Liam was just pulling back the blanket to get in. Only a night light was on dim. I was hidden under Liam's blanket. Just a small bump even if Jake came close. He wouldn't notice unless he looked hard. Why is it so dark in here? Jake asked, got caught in the rain. Head hurts as Liam spoke. He gently held my restless wrist under the blanket. The bed was only a twin. Liam was tall, took up space. I was pressed against him. My breath brushed his stomach. I felt his muscles tense. Okay. Jake didn't turn on the light. He sat in a chair, pulled out his phone, made calls after few calls with no answer. Jake was annoyed. Liam, you think me as doing this on purpose? The darkness under the blanket was suffocating, but my senses were dialed up to a blinding intensity. I could hear the rain lashing against the dorm window, the steady, angry tapping of Jake's foot against the floorboards, and right beneath my cheek, the rapid, heavy thud of Liam's heartbeat. I mean, seriously, Jake muttered, his voice thick with a mix of annoyance and wounded pride. She didn't even show up. And then that stunt by the river with the bracelet? It's so immature. She knows I hate it when she gets dramatic. Liam's stomach tightened. The hand that had been resting on my wrist slowly slid up my arm, his long fingers wrapping around my bicep. It wasn't a warning grip, it was an anchor. Maybe she's just done, Jake. Liam's voice was a low, raspy drawl, completely devoid of the tension radiating through his body. Jake let out a harsh bark of laughter. Done? Mia? Please. You know how she is. She's been following me around since we were 10. She's probably sitting in some diner right now, waiting for me to panic and go find her. Well, I'm not playing into it this time. Let her freeze. The words, which once would have felt like a knife to my chest, barely registered as a dull ache. In my past, in that terrible, recurring dream that ended in freezing water and absolute loneliness, I had been waiting for him. And he had let me drown. Under the covers, a hot tear slipped from the corner of my eye and soaked into Liam's t-shirt. Liam felt it. His body went completely rigid for a fraction of a second. Then his free hand, the one not holding me, moved. I heard the rustle of the mattress, the creak of the bed frame, and suddenly Liam's voice was sharper, colder than the rain outside. If you're so sure she's fine, then shut up and let me sleep. My head is killing me. Jake stopped tapping his foot. For a second, the silence in the room was heavier than the dark. Whatever, man, Jake finally snapped. I'm going to Chloe's dorm. If Mia calls you, tell her I don't care. The door opened, and then slammed shut. I didn't move immediately. I was too afraid to breathe. Liam didn't move either. For a long minute, the only sound was the ticking of the wall clock and our ragged breathing. Then the heavy blanket was pulled back. Cool air hit my flushed face. The dim nightlight cast shadows across Liam's features. He was looking down at me, his hair slightly rumpled, his jaw clenched so hard a muscle twitched in his cheek. His eyes dropped to the wet tear track on my face, and something profoundly dark and dangerous flickered in his gaze. He's gone, Liam said softly. I slowly sat up, pulling my knees to my chest. The oversized hoodie swallowed me, making me feel incredibly small. I'm sorry, I whispered, staring at the gray bedsheets. I shouldn't have come here. I'm just causing you trouble. Mia. Liam sat up, cross-legged, facing me. He reached out, his thumb gently catching a stray tear on my jawline. His touch was burning hot. Look at me. I raised my eyes. Are you crying because of what he said? Liam asked, his voice tight. No. I swallowed hard, shaking my head. I'm crying because I was so stupid for so long. Because it took me 10 years to realize he would never save me. And because I looked down at his pillow, remembering the pearl earring hidden beneath it. Because I didn't see who was actually there. Liam's breath hitched. His hand dropped from my face, but he didn't pull away. He looked at me as if trying to decipher a complex code, searching my eyes for any trace of a lie, any sign that this was just a rebound game. Don't say things like that, he murmured, his voice dropping an octave. Not unless you mean them. Because I'm not a good man, Mia. If you look at me now, if you really look at me, I won't ever let you look back at him. I don't want to look back, I said, and for the first time in my life, it was the absolute, unshakable truth. The phantom chill of the river from my dreams receded, replaced by the suffocating, intoxicating heat of Liam's dorm room. I reached under his pillow and pulled out the pearl earring. I placed it in the palm of my hand and held it out between us. Liam froze. The tips of his ears, which had finally returned to a normal color, suddenly flushed crimson again. He looked from the earring to my face, panic flashing in his usually stoic eyes. I lost this sophomore year, I said softly. Liam dragged a hand through his damp hair, looking away. I found it by the radiator, kept forgetting to give it back. For 2 years. He sighed, a rough, defeated sound. He leaned his head back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. Fine. You want the truth? Every time you came in here, smiling at him, bringing him coffee, looking at him like he hung the damn moon, it made me want to tear the room apart. I kept it because it was the only piece of you that he didn't own. Hearing the raw confession out loud made my heart ache in a completely new way. How had I missed this? How had I confused his coldness for hatred when it was actually restraint? I shifted closer to him. The mattress dipped. I reached out and took his hand, pressing the pearl earring into his palm, and then folded my fingers over his. "You can keep it," I whispered. "But you don't have to hide it anymore." Liam looked down at our joined hands, then up at me. The storm in his eyes had broken. He pulled me toward him, burying his face in the crook of my neck, inhaling deeply as if I were oxygen, and he'd been drowning for years. His arms wrapped around my waist, holding me so tightly my ribs ached, but it was the best kind of pain. "Go to sleep, Mia," he murmured against my collarbone. "Tomorrow is going to be hell." He wasn't wrong. When morning came, the rain had cleared, leaving the campus washed clean and unnervingly bright. I borrowed a pair of Liam's sweatpants, rolling the waistband up 3 times, and wore his hoodie. When we walked out of the dorm building together, side by side, heads turned. Liam walked close to me, his presence a towering, silent shield. He didn't try to hold my hand, knowing the gossip mill was already churning, but the way he positioned himself between me and the stairs said enough. "I need to go to my dorm to change," I said when we reached the courtyard. "I'll walk you," Liam said instantly. "No." A voice cut through the crisp morning air. We both stopped. Jake was standing by the fountain, holding 2 cups of coffee. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his hair was a mess. When he saw me, specifically, when he saw me swimming in Liam's clothes, his face went completely slack. The coffee cups in his hands tilted, hot liquid splashing onto the concrete. "Mia?" Jake's voice cracked. He looked at Liam, then back to me. The math was doing itself in his head, and the result was making him sick. What are you wearing? Where were you last night?" "I was safe," I said evenly. My voice didn't tremble. My knees didn't shake. Looking at Jake now, without the blinding filter of my childhood crush, I just saw a selfish, arrogant boy. Jake dropped the coffees. They burst on the ground. He marched toward us, reaching for my arm. "Did you sleep in my room? In my dorm? While I was out looking for you?" Before his fingers could even brush my sleeve, Liam stepped in. He didn't push Jake. He just stood there, a solid wall of muscle, looking down at his roommate with eyes so dead and cold they would have frozen hell over. "Don't touch her," Liam said. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. "Get out of the way, Liam," Jake snarled, his face turning red. "This is between me and Mia. She's throwing a tantrum because I asked Chloe out." He looked around Liam to glare at me. "Is this your plan? Hook up with my roommate to make me jealous? It's pathetic, Mia." The small crowd of students milling around the courtyard had stopped. Whispers were breaking out like wildfire. I stepped around Liam. I didn't hide behind him. I looked Jake dead in the eye. "I'm not trying to make you jealous, Jake," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the quiet courtyard. "I came to your confession yesterday to give you back the bracelet, to cut ties, and to wish you well. You are the one who spent the night acting like a maniac because I didn't perform the role you assigned me." "Perform?" Jake scoffed, though panic was starting to bleed into his eyes. "You're acting crazy." "No, I'm finally acting sane. For 10 years, I revolved my life around you. And yesterday, I realized that if I disappeared, you wouldn't miss me. You'd just miss the ego boost." I took a deep breath. The invisible chains that had choked me in my nightmare shattered completely. "We're done, Jake. Not just romantically, because there never was any romance. We're done as friends. Do not call me. Do not look for me." Jake stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish. "You don't mean that. You've loved me since we were kids." "I loved an idea of you," I corrected softly. "And I outgrew it." I turned away. Liam fell into step beside me. We walked away, leaving Jake standing in a puddle of spilled coffee, the entire campus watching his kingdom crumble. The next 3 weeks were a chaotic blur, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one crying. Jake's relationship with Chloe imploded spectacularly. Without me there to play the tragic, jealous backup, Jake's insecurities flared. He was constantly checking my social media, constantly asking mutual friends about me. Chloe, realizing she was merely a pawn in a game Jake was losing, dumped him in front of the entire cafeteria. Meanwhile, my life became quiet. Beautifully, terrifyingly quiet. My foster parents, who had always viewed my obsession with Jake as a pathetic weakness, suddenly seemed confused by my independence. I stopped going home on weekends. I got a part-time job at the campus library. I started living for myself. And then there was Liam. We didn't officially declare what we were. We didn't need to. He brought me dinner at the library during my late shifts. I saved him a seat in the back of the lecture hall we shared. Sometimes, we would sit in his car by the lake for hours, listening to music, the silence between us completely comfortable. He was incredibly gentle with me, as if afraid that moving too fast would spook me back into my shell. But I caught him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, that same dark, ravenous hunger from the night in the dorm swimming in his eyes. The dam broke on a Friday night in late November. It was my birthday. In the past, this was a day filled with anxiety, waiting to see if Jake would remember, waiting for whatever scrap of attention he'd throw my way. This year, I finished my library shift at 9 p.m. to find Liam leaning against the brick wall outside, a single white rose in his hand. He was wearing a black overcoat, his breath pluming in the freezing air. When he saw me, the corner of his mouth twitched up into that rare, devastating half-smile. "Ready?" he asked. "Where are we going?" My place, he said. I moved out of the dorm. I blinked in surprise. You moved? When? Signed the lease 3 days ago. Jake was becoming exhausting to live with. He talks about you in his sleep. Liam's jaw clenched slightly, a flash of possessive annoyance crossing his features. I couldn't take it anymore. Plus, I wanted a place where I could actually cook you a birthday dinner. My heart did a violent somersault. I followed him to his car. His new apartment was about 10 minutes off campus. It was a small, high-ceilinged loft with exposed brick walls. It smelled like fresh paint, Liam's cedarwood cologne, and something incredible roasting in the oven. The dining table was set for two, with a small, perfectly frosted cake sitting on the counter. I stood by the door, overwhelmed. Liam, you did all this? He took my coat, hanging it up. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't know what you liked. I mean, I know you like vanilla and you hate olives, but I just wanted it to be decent. I turned around, pressing my back against the door. It's perfect. We ate dinner. We drank cheap wine. We laughed, actually laughed, the sound bouncing off the empty walls of his new apartment. But as the night wore on, the air between us grew thicker, heavier. The unspoken tension that had been simmering since that rainy night in his dorm bed was boiling over. After we cut the cake, Liam walked over to the stereo and put on a vinyl record. A slow, moody jazz track filled the room. He turned to me, the dim lighting catching the sharp planes of his face. Dance with me? He asked. I stood up, my pulse pounding in my ears. I walked into his arms as naturally as breathing. He pulled me flush against his chest, one hand on my waist, the other wrapping around my hand, pressing it against his racing heart. We swayed slowly, barely moving. You're shaking, Liam murmured, his lips brushing my temple. I'm not cold, I whispered back. He stopped swaying. He pulled back just enough to look down at me. His eyes were entirely black, the pupils blown wide. Mia, tell me to stop right now, or I'm never going to. I reached up, threading my fingers through the soft hair at the nape of his neck. I pulled him down. Don't stop. His mouth crashed down on mine. It was nothing like the hesitant, suppressed kiss from the dorm. This was years of starvation, years of silent watching, pouring out in a single, desperate collision. His hands swept down my back, lifting me off the ground. I wrapped my legs around his waist, holding on as he backed me up against the exposed brick wall. You're mine, he breathed against my lips, his voice ragged, almost pleading. Tell me you're mine. Tell me he's dead to you. He's dead, I gasped, biting softly at his lower lip. It's only you. It's always been you. I just didn't know. Liam let out a low groan that vibrated against my chest. He carried me toward the bedroom, kicking the door shut behind us. That night, under the glow of streetlights filtering through the blinds, he worshipped me. He took every broken, insecure piece Jake had left behind and painstakingly put me back together with his hands, his lips, and his words. For the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting for someone's attention. I was the center of his universe. By spring, the campus had accepted us as a permanent fixture. Liam and Mia, the Ice King, and the girl who finally woke up. But a dying beast usually thrashes one last time before the end. It happened at the end-of-year alumni gala. It was a formal event held in the grand ballroom of the main hall. I wore a deep emerald green dress that Liam had bought me, and he wore a tailored black suit that made him look like lethal money. We were standing by the champagne tower, Liam's hand resting securely on the small of my back, when the crowd parted. Jake walked toward us. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, his suit was slightly wrinkled, and there was a manic, desperate gleam in his eyes. He smelled of whiskey. Liam tensed instantly, stepping slightly in front of me. Mia, Jake said, ignoring Liam completely. I need to talk to you. 5 minutes. Alone. We have nothing to talk about, Jake, I said calmly. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt pity. Yes, we do. Jake's voice rose, turning heads. I made a mistake, okay? Is that what you want to hear? I messed up. Chloe was nothing. I was used to you always being there and I took it for granted. But I get it now. You proved your point. I stared at him, genuinely baffled. Prove my point? Jake, this wasn't a lesson for you. This was my life. Jake shook his head frantically. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver bracelet, the exact one I had thrown into the trash can months ago. He had gone digging for it. The realization made my stomach turn. I kept it, Jake said, his eyes wild. I cleaned it. Put it back on, Mia. Please. Stop punishing me. Leave this guy. You know he's just a phase. You know we're supposed to be together. He lunged forward, trying to grab my wrist to force the bracelet onto it. He didn't make it. Liam moved with terrifying speed. His hand shot out, wrapping around Jake's throat, slamming him backward into a marble pillar. The champagne tower rattled, a few glasses tipping over and shattering on the floor. The music abruptly stopped. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Liam, don't, I said softly, stepping forward and placing a hand on Liam's tense bicep. Liam didn't look at me. His eyes were locked on Jake, who was gagging, clawing uselessly at Liam's iron grip. I let you breathe for the last 6 months because she asked me not to hurt you, Liam said, his voice a chilling whisper that carried through the dead silent room. But you need to understand something. She is not your toy. She is not your backup plan. She is my world. And if you ever speak to her, look at her, or breathe in her direction again, I will break every bone in your body. Do we understand each other? Jake, purple in the face, managed a frantic nod. Liam threw him to the floor. Jake crumpled, coughing violently, the silver bracelet clattering uselessly across the marble tiles. Liam adjusted his cuffs, his face a mask of utter calm. He turned to me, the ice in his eyes instantly melting into warmth. He offered me his arm. Shall we? He asked softly. I smiled, slipping my arm through his. Let's go home. We walked out of the ballroom together, leaving Jake coughing on the floor, surrounded by the shattered glass of his own entitlement. I didn't look back. Not even once. 5 years later. The rain was pouring in sheets against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse, but inside, the fireplace was roaring, casting a warm, golden glow over the living room. I sat on the plush rug, folding laundry, humming softly to myself. The trauma of the recurring dreams had faded completely. They were just ghosts now, banished by the absolute certainty of my reality. I hadn't seen or heard from Jake in half a decade. Last I heard through the grapevine, he had dropped out and moved back to our hometown, working at his uncle's auto shop, still telling anyone who would listen about the girl who ruined his life. The front door clicked open. I'm home, a deep, rough voice called out. I looked up as Liam walked into the living room, shrugging off his wet overcoat. He was a partner at a corporate law firm now, his sharp edges refined into a deadly courtroom presence, but the moment his eyes landed on me, he softened. He walked over, dropping to his knees on the rug beside me. He didn't care about his expensive suit. He pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. You smell like rain, I murmured, running my fingers through his damp hair. You smell like home, he replied, kissing the hollow of my throat. He pulled back just enough to reach into his suit jacket. He pulled out a small, velvet box and placed it in my palm. My breath caught. I looked up at him, my heart hammering exactly the way it had in that cramped dorm room 5 years ago. Open it, he said, his eyes impossibly dark, filled with that same, consuming storm. I flipped the lid open. Inside wasn't a ring. It was a necklace. A delicate, platinum chain holding a single, flawless pearl. I recognized it instantly. It was the earring. He had it set into a pendant. A ring comes next, Liam said softly, his thumbs tracing my cheekbones. But I wanted to give you this first. To remind you that even when you were looking at someone else, I was keeping your pieces safe. I always will. Tears blurred my vision, but this time, they were tears of absolute, overwhelming joy. I didn't jump into a freezing river. I didn't die alone in a foreign country. I survived, and I found the man who would carry my fire, not my ashes. Put it on me, I whispered. Liam took the necklace, leaning forward. As he fastened the clasp behind my neck, his lips brushed my ear. I love you, Mia, he breathed. More than you'll ever know. I turned, throwing my arms around his neck, pulling him down onto the rug with me. You have the rest of our lives to show me. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but it couldn't touch us. We were exactly where we were meant to be.